guys, it's Elena. Welcome back to my channel. So today I have taken inspiration from another Molby the Label design and I am making my own orange blossom inspired shirt. So I love how it turned out and I hope it inspires you to make your own fun fruity shirt. So first thing first is to get our pattern. So I went ahead and drafted this pattern on myself. I don't have a mannequin, so I just pinned this onto my shirt and kind of went off of this picture of the shirt that I wanted to recreate. So I just added 3 little pleats, and then I also drafted up a waistband that will be used on this shirt. So once those pieces were drafted, I went ahead and just cut everything out of my gingham and orange fabric. So here I have listed everything that I ended up cutting out for my bodice. I do have extra pieces for some of them because I am lining different parts of the bodice. But once you have everything cut out, you can start actually working on it. So I started by putting in the darts and pleats in my bodice pieces. So I started with the back pieces. I wanted 1 long dart. So I basically measured into the center. I measured about 1/2 inch to 1/2 inch all the way up about 8 inches. And then basically just traced a line to connect the 3 dots to make a triangle. And then I just sewed up that dart all the way off and you get a really nice, clean, non-puckered dart. And this was perfect for my back pieces. After that, we can go ahead and start on the pleats on the front pieces. So I basically just duplicated what was on my drafted piece. So I came in about 1/2 inch, which was my seam allowance, and then I measured over 1.5 inch, and then 1 inch, and then 1.5 inch, and then 1 inch, until I had 3 pleats in total. So I'm basically just like pinching together my marks and then just pinning up about 3 inches from the bottom of my bodice piece. And then there you have our 3 little pleats that are perfectly fitted to me. And you're just gonna go ahead and sew up those 3 pleats up about 3 inches. This can differ based off of what fits you best, but this was what gave me the best fit. Also try to do it directionally the same each time. So start at the bottom and come up for each one of your pleats. And this is what it ends up looking like. Once your different pleats and darts are in, you can go ahead and start attaching your front and back pieces. So I am just pinning and then sewing along the side seams and shoulder seams of my left front and my left back, and then doing the same thing for my right front and right back. And remember, we're doing this all twice because we do have lining pieces. Once we have all of our pieces done, we're going to connect our lining pieces to our outer shell. So basically, I'm just lining up the left outside and the left lining and putting them right sides together and lining up at the shoulder seams and then pinning together along that neck raw edge. And you can just do a really small seam allowance all the way along the top. Make sure that you do clip any of those curves to make sure that it's sitting nice and flat, and make sure that you're ironing this part very well. I did not do a top stitch, and so I really made sure to iron this, like I said before, really well and get a really crisp fold. Once we have our top of our bodice done, we can connect our waistband, which will put our left and right bodice pieces together. So I folded down my waistband about 1/4 inch, just so it would help me know where to sew, kind of like bias tape. And I just pinned that along the bottom of my waistband, matching up that corner of my fold with the edge of my waistband. So here you can see the left side is folded in, and now I can attach the right side of my bodice to this little triangle piece. So I'm going to match it up just kind of like I did before, matching up the edge of the triangle with the edge of my bodice piece, and then just continuing to do that along the raw edge of my waistband. Go ahead and sew all the way down to attach it. Again, I did fold that little waistband up about 1/4 inch, so that's just what I used to sew along, so I knew to go into a straight line. And then this is what it looks like from the front. It looks really nice and pointy, so that's exactly what we want. And now we're going to take our other second waistband front and basically sandwich our orange fabric in between the two gingham pieces. So you could do this, you know, all in one step, but I really wanted to make sure that I had it correctly. And then I just went and sewed where I had previously sewn, but I'm attaching that second piece of fabric. Again, so that our orange main fabric is sandwiched in between our gingham waistband and all of our raw edges are enclosed. After that, we can go ahead and get ready to attach our back waistband. There are a lot of different ways you can do this, but I kept it separate so that I could get a very precise waist seam and get that to match up exactly on my waistband to my main fabric. So I'm just basically marking where I want to sew right along my fabric, trimming any excess waistband off. And then when I flip it right sides over, you can see that my side seams will match up perfectly. So just like we did before, I did that on the right side and lining of our waistband, and I'm just sandwiching that orange fabric in between our gingham pieces and securing that with a normal straight stitch. Once our waistband is done, we can put on the ruffle onto our cute orange blossom shirt. So I'm just taking the front and back panels of my ruffle and sewing them together at the side seams. I also at this time did cut up the back single panel to make it into 2 half panels. That way I could put in my zipper. But once I have done that, I went ahead and serged those sides, and then I did 2 long basting stitches on the top so that I could gather this and so that it's actually a cute little ruffle. I do have a video on gathering if you want some more instruction on how to do it, or you just want a little bit more of an explanation. But you just pull on the 2 top strings of your basting stitch and pull on your fabric until you get some nice gathering action. Once your ruffle is gathered, you're going to line up and match up the side seams of your ruffle to the side seams of your waistband and pin it right sides together. And I find that when I'm sewing something gathered to a just flat piece of fabric, it's a lot easier if I can do the sewing on the flat piece of the fabric. I find that it just goes a little bit smoother. But make sure that you add plenty of pins and you will get this looking perfect. After that, we can finish off our waistband by folding down on the inside about a 1/4 to a 1/2 inch over our raw edge, and then pinning it on the front because we are going to be doing a stitch in the ditch, which is basically where we are sewing in between our two fabrics on that seam. So we're doing it from the front so that it's invisible to the front, but on the back it will still be attaching our folded down seam. You can do a whip stitch, but I like to machine stitch. So once we get to our sleeves, I'm just doing a long basting stitch to gather at the shoulder and then sewing my sleeve together at the side seams. At this point, you can also serge here because it will be a lot harder to do this later. Next, we will attach our sleeve to our bodice, first by matching up and nesting the side seam of our bodice to the side bottom seam of our sleeve. And I always find it's easiest to pin on the outside of our garment, and make sure that you're adding plenty of pins and making sure that you're actually pinning your sleeve to the proper side. So always flip it over and double check before you actually sew this, but you can just use your normal 1/2 inch seam allowance to attach your sleeve onto your bodice. After that, we can move on to making the cuffs for our sleeves. I did make a video going a lot more into depth on how to do this for this project in particular, so go check out the video if you want a little bit more instruction. But basically, I sewed a slit into my sleeve about 2 inches up. I gathered around the base of my sleeve, and now I am attaching my cuff to the gathered part of my sleeve, right sides together. I do have some interfacing on that folded piece of fabric, and that folded piece of fabric is the width of my wrist plus a little bit for seam allowance and just some wiggle room. So once you have attached your cuff to your sleeve, it looks like this, and it looks great. We're gonna follow the same steps as we did before, and we are going to attach first the edges of our sleeve. So we're just gonna fold down our cuff right sides together and make sure that you are overlapping so that the bottom is folded past your original seam, because we are doing a stitch in the ditch here so that we can have our cuff attached but also still invisible from the front. You can go ahead and add some button loops. I also have videos for that. And then you can go ahead and attach your zipper. I went ahead and did an invisible zipper, and also it's so important to make sure that your top edge at the neck and your waistband is lined up, but you can just use your zipper foot and go ahead and attach that. I also have a video going more into depth on invisible zippers, so go check that out if you're not feeling the most comfortable with zippers. It definitely takes some practice, but you can definitely get it down. After the zipper is in, there's only one last step, and that is to hem our shirt. So I did a double folded hem. That's my favorite way to hem things. So I just folded up about 3/4 of an inch once, ironed it, and then folded it up again about 3/4 of an inch, ironed it, and then went and secured it with pins. And then I just did a normal straight stitch to secure that with a very small seam allowance. And once I have finished my hem and it is looking great, I am officially done with this shirt. And oh my gosh, I seriously feel like Orange Blossom from, you know, like Strawberry Shortcake. I feel so cute. I'm in love with how it turned out, and I really think it looks just like the Molby shirt that I was inspired by. So I hope you love this tutorial and it inspires you to make your own fruit clothes, and I'll see you in the next one.